Is it still morning? Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Oliver Thomas. I'm the Director of Community Partnerships in IS&T, and I wanted to mix it up a little bit, and I'm doing 3 sets of 3. But one of the nice things about talking about technology is it's so interwoven in everything we do these days that you've already heard a lot of what would normally be on my list of technology in the other presentations. The first thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is testing before you travel, which has also been emphasized by some of the other speakers. Everything is a lot easier to think about, plan for, and fix before you actually get on the plane and leave. And in particular, think about what it is you want to do at your destination and why you're going, and then use that to help you plan what you need to take. If you're taking a computer, too quiet? All right, great. Is that better? If you're taking a computer, make sure all your updates are installed. Every piece of software that you need is downloaded. There's nothing more annoying than getting to somewhere where you have to worry about connectivity and all of a sudden your updater starts and you have 3 gigs of updates that you need to install before you can move on. And test any software that you take. So we'll talk about the connectivity piece in the next step, but a lot of us are so used to things just working and get into a routine of being able to rely to hopping on a wireless network or using the VPN that we don't think about what might happen if you're trying to do the same thing through a much less fast cell phone connection, for example. And then the second important thing is planning your connectivity and having a backup plan for it. The picture here, I don't know how many of you know this, but MIT is an EduRoam partner. So if you haven't tried it, you can actually try it here on campus. It's useful domestically. It's useful if you need to camp somewhere at Harvard. A lot of research and higher ed institutions are partners on a wireless framework called EduRoam. You sign into it with your MIT address and your MIT password, and you'll automatically join it if you're near another research institution or university that is also a partner of EduRoam. In our knowledge base and on the EduRoam website, you can do a much more detailed search of where the partners are and whether you're likely to be covered. With that said, don't rely on Wi-Fi as your only connectivity option. Do plan on having cellular coverage where you go. And that's an interesting, I'll mention it as a checklist item, but whether or not it will work at your destination and what you might need to do to make sure that happens is really a conversation. So if you don't have any specific information about your destination, I would encourage you to talk to the IS&T help desk before you leave. They can help you out with some very specific advice. In particular, it used to be you needed an international phone in most cases because your US phone wouldn't work. That landscape has changed a lot in the last 10 years. If you have a smartphone that's less than 5 years old, there's a good chance the hardware will just work when you travel. But your carrier might not. It might not allow you to roam internationally if you don't make that arrangement beforehand. You might rack up a lot of charges if you don't think about that piece beforehand. So for example, a lot of places on campus actually will keep a mobile plan for international travel, a SIM card that's with T-Mobile, who have a very good international roaming plan. And you'll take that as a backup when you travel. It can usually pop into an unlocked phone, which brings me to another thing you want to check before you go. Does your phone actually accept a SIM card? Is it unlocked to do so, or do you need to make that arrangement before you travel or take an unlocked phone? In most cases, that's also gotten a lot better. So if you buy a phone from Apple, Google, if you get one from Verizon, there's a good chance it is unlocked. But some carriers still require you to make that an explicit step. AT&T is an example of that. The next and last kind of prep step I'll talk about a little bit is getting to know your tech support. And I'm not just talking about IT tech support here. This is really about setting up a functional home base before you leave the country. So this includes your program manager. It may include administrative support you have at home. And make sure they have all the information that is critical to you that you're taking with you. They should have a copy of it. So this includes your itinerary and other travel-related information, but it would also include any presentation files or documents you might need access to. Make sure they have access to it as well. It's often a lot easier if you lose your laptop, if you lose access to the files, to coordinate with one person at home to get copies sent to you than to have to track those down across Dropbox and file permissions in AFS or whatever it is you might be using. And then the getting to know part should be fun, but I just wanted to mention that our help desk in E17 loves walk-ins, so I would encourage you, if you are traveling, to bring all the gear that you take and stop by there. They can take a look. They can make sure your VPN is working. They can give you advice about, and I want to be a little bit guarded because it is a very constantly changing landscape, but they will give you advice on whether some of the software you're taking might present issues at a remote destination. And in particular, they can help you install or uninstall things that you might not want to take. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But you should know what it is you're traveling with before you hit the road and travel. So that includes things that are on your laptop. The other thing I will mention here, because I'm not sure it's really made the rounds across campus, but be aware that the IS&T service desk triage team is now 24/7. So you can call them from abroad or email them around the clock, and there should be somebody getting back to you very quickly. So that's those three. And then we'll talk about three things to take with you. This is more for convenience, but I've certainly had plenty of trips where one of the big frustrations was having 6 things that need to be charged and not being able to charge them all. So if you get something like this and you travel with your Apple Watch and your phone and your tablet and your laptop, make sure you actually have the tools to charge it easily. Depending on where you go, you may have one outlet in a hotel room. It may not be in a convenient location. And the last point I wanted to make with that little no smoking sign, I guess, is I used to travel with a battery backup charger that was also a wall adapter. Love it, still use it when I go on road trips. But I've stopped taking random things with batteries on airplanes with me just because that's also a shifting landscape, but it becomes more and more risky to try to travel with things that have lithium batteries in them if you don't also have, if you're not also very clear on what's required. So in some cases, you need to put them in a protective pouch. On Wednesdays and Thursdays, you might need to check them. On Tuesdays and Fridays, you might need to you put them in your carry-on. So I'm just leaving those at home and taking more capabilities to plug into local power instead. The two-factor authentication elephant in the room, signing in and security has become a much higher concern for all of us over the last few years. I think all of us are using two-factor authentication on campus. If you're using the mobile app, the push functionality is super convenient, but it requires connectivity. And if you lose your phone, so suddenly it becomes very difficult to sign into services. So we always encourage folks to bring an additional two-factor authentication device. The one that's made available for free to the MIT community, just need to ask for it, is a YubiKey. It plugs into a USB port. There are other ways to do this. So when you register for Duo, you can register phone numbers in addition to your mobile app. So that brings us back to the previous slide. You may actually want to register the phone number of someone at home so that you can select that and be on the phone with them. If really all your other options don't work out, they can approve the sign-in for you. And again, the help desk can walk you through the details, but really when you sign up for Duo, you can go through the checklist and they will all be available to you anytime in the future you go to sign in to an MIT service. And then the VPN. It's starting to becoming a little bit like batteries, but make sure it works, and I'll explain that comment, but make sure it works before you leave. Make sure it works with Duo and that you've used it with Duo. A lot of us only use it when we travel. And it sometimes can be tricky to sign in with Duo if you need to use a special code as opposed to just having it send you a push notification. So make sure it works. But then the other thing to be careful about, especially if you're traveling to a high-risk destination, is make sure that it's legal where you go. So there are some countries where VPN use is explicitly unallowed, and there are some countries where it's sort of okay, but not in every context. So for example, I have a sibling who is currently working on a project in Saudi Arabia, where it's technically legal to use the VPN, but really it's frowned upon in public locations and other non-home situations, and can sometimes be used as an indicator that maybe you're doing something on the internet that you shouldn't be doing, because there are restrictions on what you can do on the network. So, and then there are other countries where it's just like the UAE, for example, where it's explicitly not allowed to use a VPN. And we do have lists of those in our knowledge base article. And then I wanted to talk about 3 things that you may want to consider leaving behind. One is your laptop, which seems a little counterintuitive. But again, if you think about where you're traveling and what kind of, whether it's a high-risk destination or maybe just a really rough trip, you're not sure if your laptop's going to be physically safe during the course of the trip, you may actually want to get a loaner laptop. MIT does make those available. And you can start with a clean slate. You can make sure only the things that you want on the laptop are on it. And if you do break it, it's not great. It's still an MIT laptop, but it'll be a lot nicer for you than breaking your own laptop that has your last 25 years of your life on it. Data is the other piece I wanted to talk about a little bit. One of the challenges for most of us, I think, is that we probably don't know all the stuff that's on our laptops, whether it's your spam folder or just files you've accumulated or things that you've been given access to in Dropbox that I've synchronized to your machine. I love searching. I don't think I could tell you organizationally all the stuff that's on my laptop. And some of it may be risky to travel with. So again, in the same vein, it's worth either just doing a quick mental inventory of that, or if you're going to a place where it could cause serious issues, not even worrying about it and traveling with a clean machine that only has the data you need on it. And the last thing in that vein is your cloud apps. I just like this picture. It has nothing to do with high-risk destinations, but it is a border crossing, so there you go. But this is a little bit counterintuitive for many of us, but we rely on so many cloud apps that have clients installed on our machines and our phones, whether that's Dropbox, Google Drive, all of those things that synchronize data down. So you can still get to that data just through your web browser, even if those clients are not installed on your laptop, and your laptop won't have a copy of that data on it, which can actually be a great thing when you travel, especially when you cross borders. It doesn't really matter where you go in that case. Normal laws of search and seizure don't apply. Your laptop can be searched, and that data might cause you issues, or it might just be a nice find for wherever it is you're traveling to. It's best not to have it, and that includes the last thing I'll mention, which are password managers. So if you have a password manager, which is great, you should. We shouldn't use the same passwords for different things ever. You may want to uninstall the client before you travel so that folks don't know that you have a password manager. and you can go to the website of something like LastPass and still access all your passwords remotely if you need to, but it won't be clear that you have them. The other thing, again, for high-risk destinations, this is not an issue with Canada. Travelers have been asked to provide passwords to get into cloud services if border security staff realized that they had those cloud services. And usually if you are, the best thing to do is comply, right? You don't want to put up a fight at the border crossing. This way, if it's not installed on your machine, there's no indication that you have it, and you can look at it through a normal web browser when you get to your destination. And then I'll just leave you with a couple of resources. I wouldn't worry too much about the URLs. You can just type MIT Technology Tips for Travelers into Google, and the right knowledge base article will come up. Help desk, do take that information with you, 24/7 access. And then our distributed IT folks are the folks who can work with you if you need a loaner laptop to travel with. Thank you very much.